Welcome back to episode 164 of Tall Boy Radio. And the more astute of you tonight will have noticed that it isn't our regular theme music. The music tonight is provided by our guest. But before we get to that, let's get to our irregulars. Gazza?
Yeah, thanks, dude. Evening the world. Looking forward to this a little bit where we have guests on. I said it over the last couple of weeks, particularly when we have brand new guests that haven't been with us before. So really looking forward to what they've got to say, what they're going to add to the podcast. So yeah, let's see where this goes.
Indeed. Dave?
Yeah, hi everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Yeah, looking forward to today's guest. I've not crossed path with him for a couple of hours at least.
Dear, oh dear, twice in one day, Jamie. What have you done to deserve that? And so our guest tonight is a guy called Jamie. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and perhaps a little bit about how you know Dave?
Hi guys, yeah, thanks for having me on the show. My name's Jamie, as you said. I have done many things in my life, and I know David from my current job, so working at my staff shop. We work together there. I guess you guys are wanting to talk to me about my music history. So I played in a band from the age of 13 up till probably about the age of 27, at which point I took up martial arts. And it's a bit late of an age to be taking up martial arts, but I've got a bit of an interesting story about that, which I'm sure we'll get into later. But I got quite good at it and ended up winning a world championship title in 2016. Through that process, I trained as a personal trainer as well, decided that, hey, why would I go and pay someone to train me when I could just learn and do it myself? And I have 7 kids and a couple of really interesting hobbies.
Wow. I'm
Wow.
not sure where to start with that.
There's so much to go at there. I think we're going to need 2 or 3 podcasts.
I tell you.
You got nothing to go at with me, so I thought I'd use Jamie as a filler.
The big one, really. 7 kids. Where do you find time for that?
Yeah, good question. I honestly don't know. People ask me that, but I think same with everything in life that's a challenge, like whether it's business, your job, you just kind of do it, don't you? You just kind of have to find the time. And it means ultimately, I guess, that I'm not able to spend as much time with my kids as I probably should or would like to. And I particularly noticed that in the one-to-one time, that's really difficult because there's so many of them. Like if you think about by the time I get home from work and that few hours that I get to spend with them, to spend one-on-one time with all of them is really, really difficult. I mean, it's slightly easier because the 3 older ones are my stepkids, so they're Helena's from her previous marriage. And the oldest, he doesn't really come home anymore. So really, it's only 6 that we have in the house at any one time. But it's still a fair number. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. You do what you can. You do your best.
No, fair play. I don't know. Yeah. Well done on dividing up like 1/6 of your time, 1/6 of your spare time with that. Gee whiz.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's impressive. So I don't know where to start. Well, should we start with the music then? That's where you started with. So you started playing. Well, you've played in a couple of bands, haven't you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? So the music that the good folks will have heard at the start is a song called Let It Go, not to be confused with the soundtrack from the film Frozen. So that's a tune that you did with a band. Is it AIO or IO? I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
Yeah, IO. We always pronounced it IO. We wanted to name the band after the moon. But unfortunately, we did a Google search and it was already taken. So we thought, hey, do you know what? We'll just stick an A in the front of it and it looks cooler, sounds exactly the same, and we can use it. So that's what we did.
No, fair play. And how did you get involved with that then? How, what? And I can see in the background there, you've got it looks like a 6-string guitar. Is that the instrument you play?
One.
Oh, is it a bass? Is it? Oh,
yeah. That's one of my basses, and I've got an acoustic, and that's Helena's guitar. But yeah, mostly basses, because I started off as a bass player, and that was really because, well, I moved schools a lot when I was a kid. My family moved around a lot, not because we were an army family or anything like that, but we moved from Shrewsbury down to Norfolk, which is just north of London, and then we moved back up to Shrewsbury, and then we kind of moved around. So we weren't really that settled until about year 5 of my school life, and I went to Holy Cross School in Shrewsbury, and it was the first school where I was at for a considerable amount of time where I could actually get settled. And the guy that they put me with on the first day there to show me around and show me the ropes was called Jake. And he ended up being my best friend for, God, decade and a half, probably. And he was in a band. And I just remember going to watch him. They organized it. They were doing like a little show and they took people out of the class to go and watch them play. And I went in and watched him play and I just thought, oh, that's so cool. And I was begged and begged and begged him for 2 years to let me join this band. I was like, come on, let me sing for you. I can sing. I'm sure I can. And it wasn't until we went to secondary school and the different members of the band ended up going to different secondary schools. So they kind of disbanded. And that's when I got in there. It was like, right, come on, you've got no excuse now. Let me in. And so we did. And we partnered up with another one of our friends, but we couldn't find a bass player. So I said, well, I'll just learn it then. So bought a bass. My dad was always into electronics and he had a studio design and build business. And he actually built the reel-to-reel tape machines that they used to use in the old recording studios back in the day as well. Cool. So he built me my bass amp from scratch, which was awesome. I taught myself how to play bass and learned how to sing and, well, slowly learned how to sing. And yeah, the rest is history. So we went from that, just kind of rehearsing in the secondary school practice room. We did a few gigs at school, and then we did our very first gig. I think it was when I was 14, and we made all the tickets ourselves and like laminated them and everything, and went and sold them around school. And we hired out this hall near where I lived, and we put on, thinking about it for our age, we did a bloody good job because we didn't fill the hall, but like we put on this gig. We had like support there. We had a PA and music, and we had all these people from school came down who bought these tickets. It was brilliant. But I was absolutely shitting myself like, going up on stage at this time, especially as the singer, because when you play an instrument, you can kind of hide behind that a little bit. But when you're singing, you like your whole heart and soul is on show for everybody to see, isn't it? That's how I felt anyway. And so yeah, we've gigged all over the place over the years. But so anyway, we did that, and various people came and went, and Jake and I were always the constant. And we recorded, because my dad was his business was actually designing and building recording studios and TV suites, like media facilities. So we had access to like all this knowledge about acoustics, and he had access to all the latest recording equipment and gear and all the mics and stuff. So like they would supply that for the studios they built sometimes as well. So we'd get to play with some of the coolest equipment when we were like coming up as a band. And we did our first album with him across one summer, and that was Silicon Stupor, it was called. And it was just me and Jake playing guitar, bass, and vocals, and then we had this little keyboard thing that we were doing some filler stuff on as well. And yeah, it's been crazy.
Fair play. Wow. Has Dave ever told you about his musical background?
No, I don't believe so.
No.
Oh, Dave!
He's not mentioned that.
Yeah, now's the time. Now's the time, Dave. Come on.
Yeah, well, it's very very similar actually. We formed a band. Us and some others, and none of us could play instruments. So I thought I'd learn to play the bass, and I didn't. And I didn't bother trying to learn to sing because I clearly can't. And we recorded some tracks, didn't we?
We did, yeah. So we had a band called Violent Disorder, and we recorded some fantastic songs called More Tea Vicar, Holy Anchovies, and then Dave recorded a beautiful solo called The Iron Coffin, which was about 15 minutes of him strumming the only blues chord he could play and talking away, even in an even deeper voice than he manages on a daily basis.
I can't remember that.
No, well, I'll dig it out somewhere. Somewhere it's on tape somewhere. I tell
I was going to say we've got copies of it somewhere.
No, I can't remember that at all. I remember More Tea Vicar, but that was about it.
Yeah, More Tea Vicar was about the pinnacle of our achievement. So yeah, so we know ourselves because the three of us were in that band. none of us could play instruments. None of us can play instruments now. So it was pretty diabolical. But it's to be able to do that on a stage. I take my hat off to you, because it takes a fair bit of gumption, a bit of belief in your own ability to know that you can get up there and do it, or just assume that you can get up there and do it. I don't know which one it is. We had a band on here called Double Denon, didn't we, Gaz? Do you remember?
Yeah.
So the guy who was the Tim's his name, wasn't he? The lead singer in that.
Singer.
And he was exactly as you expect from a lead singer who's a fairly gregarious character. You strike me as a man with some reserve. So how do you let go when you're up on stage?
It's a bizarre experience for me being on stage. It's definitely a flow state kind of experience, and I used to get really nervous, and I still do. Even like I do a bit of public speaking and have done for many years now, and every time I have to do something, I still get nervous. I still get the butterflies and that physiological reaction. But I think it's that kind of thing is important to do because, well, Eleanor Roosevelt said it best: you should do the things you think you cannot do. And my Taekwondo career is a great testament to that, because at 27, I decided I'm just going to go and find some random Taekwondo school. And then within 3 months, I've won 2 gold medals. And within 3 years, I'm world champion at 30 years old. Well, it's not because I'm anything special. It's not because I'm gifted. All right, I'm tall, so I'm leggy, and I've got some reach on me, and that's great. But it's the hard work I put in, and the fact that I was prepared to go and face my fears and do the thing that was difficult. And that's the one thing I think that holds up most people back, is not even believing that you can do it, because I don't think you need that. I think you just need the balls to try and accept the fact that you're going to fail a whole bunch of times. It's that whole white belt mentality.
Yeah.
You've got to be prepared to be shit at something before you can master it. Every master started out as a novice, as an idiot, someone who didn't know, couldn't do. But it's that process of iteration. It's those people who are prepared to put themselves in at that point of humiliation of getting it wrong and failing and not knowing, that can actually work through and overcome that, not because of any kind of self-belief necessarily, but more because of some dogged resilience and tenacity, whereby, you know what, sod it, I'm just going to do it anyway. Who cares?
Yeah. Was it always... Sorry, Dave, go on.
I was just going to say, Jamie, there was a point, wasn't there, when you first started to learn, Taekwondo, and some people said to you, wow, you're a natural at this and you're really good at it. What did you tell them in response?
So when I first started the Taekwondo, I was training once a week on a Sunday and do 1 hour at a class in mold. And then very quickly I started ramping that up. So even like when I was training in classes, I was maybe doing 4 classes a week within 2 or 3 months. But, and people saw me going to those classes, especially over the first couple of months. And I'm like, oh, wow, because they said that, but you're a natural, you're amazing at this. I say, well, you say that, but and you see me at classes, and it looks like from week to week I'm flying. But what you're not seeing is that, and I didn't have kids then, so this is how. When I go home, from the class, I do 4 hours of that in my living room, just going over the stuff that we've done in that class that day. And then I completely fell in love with it. So when I was at work, every time I go to the loo, I do 10 press-ups. Every time I was standing anywhere talking to someone, I'd stand in parallel ready stance, making sure that my feet were parallel, because that was a big deal. And just anything that I could build into my everyday life that would help build my skills in that particular field, I would try and incorporate. And so the lesson there is that it's not the big things, like it's not the big steps that get you places. It's lots of little steps. It's the constant little things, those daily habits that you can build into your life that are going to change your life over the course of months and years. Not I'm going to buy this course and I'm going to change my life in 6 months. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I remember reading. I might have heard it on TV. So Dave Brailsford, who's the team director of Sky Cycling, when Sky threw loads of money into cycling, and he talked about incremental gains, and he talked about those 1% gains, and he talked about the little steps, as you said, Jamie, the little steps that actually, when you do put them all together, it's what sets you aside from all the also rans, because at that elite level, everybody has a particular skill set, everybody has a particular mindset, because you wouldn't be at the stage that you're at without having that. So it's those tiny little incremental changes or things that you can do that you absolutely focus on, and when you do then start to add those up, that makes the difference between you being a world champion and a gold medalist and perhaps a silver medalist or a bronze medalist. It's just those tiny little things that you build on. I was going to ask, was it always Taekwondo? Did you ever think, what drew you to Taekwondo? Because obviously you've got the jiu-jitsu, you've got judo, and you've got lots of other sort of martial arts. What was it about Taekwondo that sort of attracted you to it?
Faith in a lot of ways. I don't even know why what happened that day happened, but I was driving in my car. I remember it was a beautiful day. I was driving just down here, coming out past the shop, and someone had posted a video to my Facebook wall of Bruce Lee doing his 1-inch punch, and he was using nunchucks to light matchsticks on fire in midair and all this crazy stuff. So like one of those compilation videos. And I just remember driving in my car. I was driving back to work at the family business at the time, and I just couldn't shake this feeling that I could do that. Why don't I just do that? And I just I've made so many excuses like about not doing this or not doing that. Well, why don't I just do it? So there and then I said, right. I went online, tried to find some martial arts class, and then I realized, like you said, there's lots of different types of martial arts, and I didn't have a clue about the differences between them. Like some are grappling, some are on the ground, some's wrestling where you take people down, judos, throws, taekwondo's, kicks and punches. So I thought, right, I'll look at Bruce Lee and what did he do? What was his martial art? And he did a whole variety of different things, but it was a lot of kind of stand-up stuff, and then he put it together into his own system. So I wanted to find something that was similar to that, and Taekwondo, out of all of them, was the closest that I could find that was available in my geographical area to Bruce Lee's kind of style, with the punches, the kicks, and all that fancy stuff. It looked fun. And so anyway, I found this antiquated website, and it said that the nearest school to me was in Mold, which is about 45 minutes from me. But actually there was a school in Oswestry, and this is important. So I phoned up the instructor and I said, a guy called Martin, amazing guy. I said, I'd love to come and try your class. He said, oh, brilliant. Yeah, come along. But don't come this Sunday because we're all at the World Championships. And I remember thinking at the time, fuck that. Nah, I'm out. Cause I was bullied at school. I'd never thrown a punch in my life. Like just that whole thought of being put in a ring with people who were trying to kill me, I felt like was just like, no, I'm out. But again, it was that part of me that said, well, if you don't want to do it, maybe you should. And so I said to myself, well, all right, I'm not going to spar. I'm not going to do any of that fighting stuff. I'll just go and I'll learn the techniques, get fit, and see if I like it, see if I can have some fun. And I went along, and just everybody there was so amazing. The instructor was fantastic. The other black belts in the class really took me under their wing. It wasn't macho. It wasn't egos. It was so respectful. And I realized then that actually the physical, the fighting was such a small part of what it was all about. The discipline, the self-respect, the courtesy, just the values that kind of a practice instills in you, I think has potential to be carried across into every aspect of your waking life. And so I loved it, and I just went more and more and more. It was great.
Interesting. Very interesting. Just to go back to what you said there at the start, though, about putting yourself out there and doing the things that you can't do. So you take yourself up, you put yourself up on stage. If you can't do that when you put yourself in that scenario, the worst situation is you're going to maybe look a little bit foolish. You put yourself in a combat scenario, there's a good chance you're going to get yourself punched in the mouth. That first time you took a knock or a blow, or you put yourself in a situation where you fell out of your comfort zone, can you tell us about that? Can you remember it?
God, there were so many. We used to do this this training session called Fight Club, right? And we had the guy who was 22-time world champion in Taekwondo. He would come down from Sefton to this club in the Wirral, and he would do this Fight Club training, and it was only on like once a month or something. So like everyone looked forward to it, but all the best fighters in the like North Wales would all come to this Fight Club training, because it was where you went to get to fight all the best fighters, you know, and that's what they needed. And so many times when I would go there, he would do drills with us, and he would put us in situations that you feel really out of your depth, but you have to feel out of your depth, because if you don't feel out of your depth, you're not learning, you're not growing, you're not developing your skills. And so I wish there was one that really stood out that I could tell you about, but like it was every time I stepped into the dojo in a situation like that, that's why I was there, is because it was nerve-wracking. You didn't know what you were going to face. I didn't know how my body was going to perform that day, what other people were going to be in the room. You know, that was, I suppose, part of the anxiety was leading up to that class. When you're on your way there, you're like, what am I going to be doing today? How is he going to put me through my paces? What other fighters are going to be there? Am I going to get my ass handed to me? But I almost hoped that I did, in lots of ways. And I loved it when I would walk away from there with not a serious injury, but just like, you know, bruised ribs, or, you know, like your arm be aching, or your legs, or whatever it might be. You felt like you'd been put through the ring, you know, put through the mill. And that's what it was all about, because suffering means something. And I think that's what a lot of people don't appreciate today, especially younger people today. It can be so entitled in their view of the world, and it should have this and it should be that way. And suffering is important. So much to be learned through suffering.
Is it? I guess in a way, then it's kind of like paying the price for that development. You know, the suffering is the price you pay, which is an interesting concept. And I guess that goes down to the discipline that you talked about. So how was that discipline that you learned in the dojo and doing Taekwondo? How did you see the impact that then on your everyday life?
Oh, massively in everything. From the way I am with my kids, to the way I am in business, the way I approach people, the way I respect other people. I'm a lot more confident in myself, and that's made a big difference in how I deal with people as well. And I used to have a recurring nightmare before I started martial arts, where I'd had it since I was a kid, but I would have it periodically, and I'd be somewhere and there'd be like a gang of people, and they'd jump me and they'd start beating me up, or they'd stab me, or whatever they do. It was like I was getting attacked, and I couldn't do anything. I would open my mouth to scream and no sound would come out. I would try and hit back or defend myself, and I couldn't move my arms or legs. I was completely paralyzed with fear every time I had this nightmare, and it was the same damn thing every time. And then I started martial arts, and after that first class, I'd never ever had that nightmare again. Ever. And it's not that. I'll tell you a story. Right. So this weekend, just gone, we were in Chester. So we had a bit of a date night, me and my missus. We were meeting one of her friends, Karen, up there, and and her fella. And Karen and my missus went to see the Rocky Horror Show. They said, "Do you want to come with?" I said, "How much is it?" They said, 40 quid. I said, like, fuck, am I paying 40 quid for a horror show? Hate musicals. So anyway, they went and watched that, and then we met up with them afterwards. We had a great night, went to a few bars, a few pubs, and then we ended up in this place that was full of pool tables. And it was getting towards the end of the night. We'd had our game of pool, and there was this woman in there that she'd had words with one of them, or given dirty looks or something. And we'd come out of the pool area to go to the bar, and we were stood at this doorway. And Karen, as this woman came through for last orders to get her drinks, Karen must have given her like a dirty look or something, or there was something that went on, and this woman started to kick off. And then my missus, Helena, she starts getting involved, and I'm stood there like, fucking hell. So then I'm keeping a close eye on this, and I'm watching things slowly start to escalate. And so the first thing is how I'm able to do that, because me before martial arts would have been absolutely shitting myself. But I was able to have the presence of mind to stay calm enough and observant enough and aware enough that I could see and gauge how the situation was progressing, even though I'd had a few drinks. And it got to the point where I could see that the next level of escalation was going to be physical. And so that's when I stepped in and put my armor kind of between Karen and the girl and Helena and moved those two away. And I said very firmly, that's enough. At which point, the girl decided to turn on me because I was the new target. And she'd obviously had way too much to drink. She was emotionally unstable. You could tell in her tonality and her facial expressions, she was kind of calm 1 minute and then irate the next. So I could tell she was very unstable. So the first thing I did was put up the fence, hands in front, but showing your palms is a very disarming gesture, because if you can see someone's palms, you know they're not holding a weapon. So this was about calming the situation down, de-escalating, but also my hands are now up in front of me where they need to be if I need to defend myself. And so she starts going on at me, informs me that, oh, I'm tall, but you're not as fucking tall as my fella who's just in there, and he's a fucking bouncer and he'll absolutely kick your fucking head in. I'm like, okay, cool, no worries. We don't want any trouble. Let's just calm it down. So then the barmaid comes over and she starts giving it the, I won't have this in my fucking pub kind of stuff. This guy appears beside me. I look up at him. This is a fella. He must be 6'7", and I shit you not, he was built like a brick shithouse. Muscles like you wouldn't believe. And I'm thinking, bloody hell. Stood there like this with his pool cue. Clearly come to survey to see what was going on. So I thought, right, what are we going to do here? So I just turned to him, leant in and said, I think the women are getting a bit antsy, mate. So he looked at me, looked at his missus. Get the fucking drinks, babe, and get back in here. and that was that. She's like, right, drink up, come on, we're fucking going. We're done.
Yeah, you don't want that on an evening out, do you? Bless it.
I've got a really important question.
Go on.
Had I told you we don't do swearing on this podcast, how would you have got through the last 3 minutes?
We're about to start again.
That's it. No, we do, and it's fine. No, but it is interesting though that there's a perception of tall people, isn't there, that you can be in a situation you'll be left alone because you're tall. Now, I'm quite tall myself. Unfortunately, I'm not built like a brick shit house, more of a shit brick house, and. But there is that perception, and it ain't always the case, because sometimes the little fellas like to have a little pop at the big guys to make them feel a little bit bigger. And you've been in that situation, haven't you, guys, when you got tackled by a little fella?
How many times are you going to go? Seriously? Yes, that's right. Yeah. So right, the story that he's on about, we went down to watch one of the American football games down in London, and we'd had myself, Adam, Andy, lad that's sort of been on the podcast with us before. We ended up going a few bars, having a few drinks, and we're standing outside this bar, and we'd been on a bit of a troll, so we were however many pints deep. The next minute, this lad who I thought at the time was started like having a dig, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And he was about 3'5" or something, and then just started having a dig. And I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And he's literally like half my size, sort of thing. And in the end, I ended up putting him in just like a headlock. And he's genuinely trying to like have a dig at me. I'm just looking down. I'm going, "Dude, seriously, like just calm down." And like Adam and Andy, who are both like 6'4", 6'5", they're just standing there, absolutely pissing themselves laughing. And then from that moment on, I've just been known as wrestling dwarfs, and it's like I genuinely did. But he started having a dig, and on reflection, it was quite humorous. But it was Yeah, well, yeah, it was. But I'm literally just standing there. I've got him like just in sort of a half headlock, half grip, and I'm just like, dude, like, and he's like basically trying to swing his arms like this up at me, and I'm like, it ain't happening, kid. Just leave it there. I think. And I can't, did one of his mates come over and goes like, what's going on? I was like, dude, you just need to get rid of him because
Yeah.
he's just making an idiot of himself, sort of thing. And then he sort of stepped away, and I'm just like, nah, just leave it, mate. Just leave it.
Well,
Funny.
the situation about that is, had Ghost known martial arts, he could have de-escalated that a lot easier and a lot quicker. But I tell you what, dude, it was a lot funnier for Gaz not knowing martial arts.
I think that's the thing, though, as well. It's like my family and friends, they couldn't understand when I started martial arts. It's like, well, why do you want to be violent? Why do you want to go and punch and hit each other? But it's really not about that. And I could very easily have knocked the woman out, very easily. But what would the consequences have been to that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just because I can doesn't mean I should. But what it does give me is the confidence to know that not if I got in a situation that I would win, because there's never any guarantee of that. You never guarantee to win. But the confidence comes from the fact that I would know what to do. I would know how to respond. And I think that's what that nightmare was a manifestation of, was that I'd never thrown a punch in my life. I didn't know my own body. I didn't know my own physical limitations. And I think that's really important as a human being, to understand what your body can and can't do, because that gives you confidence then when you're out in the world and having to interact with people. Not that you would always be okay by any stretch, but that you would at least have a plan if you needed one.
Yeah.
I mean Albert, Alice, and Catherine all do karate, and now multiple times you say to Albert, what would you do if you're on the football pitch and somebody starts throwing punches at you? He said, "Oh, I'd just walk away, keep my eyes on him and walk away." So what if he starts to come towards you? Then I'd run away. Well, then you say, well, what if you were cornered your back to the wall? He said, I'd break his leg. So but his first response is to you de-escalate and you walk away, and that's what they're taught. Because as you just said, Jamie, what's the point in getting in a fight? You can't be sure you're going to win. You don't know what they're carrying. You don't know if they're a black belt in whatever.
Exactly.
And the important thing is, Jamie, if the big guy had started, could you have taken him?
Well, he was a bouncer, so probably not, because he probably had some kind of formal training.
Yeah, you could.
I was quite calm, because I know a bit about the bouncing industry, being interested in fighting. And the thing with bouncers is nowadays, like, they're all licensed. You can't go fucking around if you're a bouncer and getting in fights and getting in trouble. So as soon as she told me he was a bouncer, I instantly knew that it was unlikely he was going to be a problem, which was why I thought the best approach there to de-escalate was to turn to him and just say something blokey and innocuous about the girls getting a bit antsy, so the girls separate from me and him, who are the same because we're blokes, that kind of idea. Because the words you use and the way you associate or disassociate with language is very important, can have a profound impact without the person knowing what's going on.
Yeah, if you'd have said, "Can you shut your missus up?" That's a completely different thing. Can you our missus are having a go. That's completely different to shut your missus up.
Yeah,
exactly. But it says the same thing when he's looking over. He's hearing what you're saying, but you haven't said it.
Yeah. But at the same time, you've allied with him. He's on your side. So I mean, that is an interesting set of circumstances there. But then taking it from that, then we glossed over the fact that you've actually won a couple of medals and some tournaments at this. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about how that experience works and how you found it and what it's like actually lifting up a trophy at the end of the day, knowing that you've only been doing this a matter of years, but it's obviously been a focus and a discipline for you.
Well, the first ones I won, I'd been convinced to go down to the Welsh Close Championships in Cardiff, and my peers, I didn't have the confidence at all at that point, and my peers in the class said, "Like, oh, you should definitely go. You're awesome. Definitely go." So I went down there and I did my patterns, which is where I won my first gold medal. And the second one, I was actually the only person who showed up in middleweight, so I got it by default. And the guy said, "Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to go up to heavyweight, or do you want to walk away with the medal?" I said, "Well, I'll take the medal because I showed up, and I'll fight in heavyweight. Fight, and I lost that fight. But I was absolutely shitting myself. I was walking around the rings, because that's the biggest thing with the tournaments is you got lots of different rings with lots of different things going on and different. So you wouldn't have a black belt against the yellow belt. So the belts you put against the same kind of belt level. And oftentimes you've got to wait for your ring to open with your belt class. And so it was the weight, and it never got any easier. It was that weight leading up to the sparring that always just did my head in. And in the world championship medal that I won was in the team events. We had a team of 3 guys and against the other teams of 3 guys. It wasn't in the individuals. And the crazy thing is, in the individuals, I lost my first fight, and I lost my first fight to a guy that I'd won gold medal against in the Welsh Open Championships just months before. And the reason for that was my head went. My head completely went. I overanalyzed the individual part of the competition. I spent too long warming up, and I expended too much adrenaline, too much energy up to that point because I was so wound up about it. And when I got in the ring, I just couldn't pull the trigger. I just couldn't score the points. And I kicked his ass months before. Did my head in. But then went on from that to the team event, and I managed to walk away with the gold, which was brilliant. But it's nerve wracking, and it always has been. And I've lost so many fights. Like I've probably got 80 odd medals. I've won the English championships, British championships, Welsh championships, Scottish championships, world championships, and most categories at different belt levels through each of those as I've competed over the years. And that's a lot of medals and sounds really impressive. The problem with stats like that, though, is you often don't talk about the 400 fights where I got my ass handed to me. And those fights were way more important than any of the fights that I won. Those fights I won and those medals they're not a medal for winning that fight. They're a medal for learning the lessons from the previous 10 fights that I lost, getting in the gym or getting into the dojo every day that I could, training my butt off up to that next competition, and then I win. Like it's a medal for that whole process of development from failing, because failing and getting my ass handed to me was the starting point.
So we had a fellow on this podcast I think it was just about this time last year, actually. Fortunately, you missed it, Gaz. It was when you'd done your collarbone. But we had a guy on called James Pesh, who is a life coach out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And one of the things he really focuses on is stoicism. And I believe that's a real interest of yours.
It is.
Yeah. So you've done a few podcasts on this as well in the past, haven't you?
Yeah, it's actually not available anymore. It was called Stoicism for Modern Life, from Socrates to Marcus Aurelius. And what we would do essentially is we would take passages from the different books, like Marcus Aurelius's Meditations or some of Socrates' work, or whoever it might be. We just find something that we like the sound of on the day, and we would read it out at the start of the podcast, and then we would talk about what it meant and how to apply the principles from that philosophy in modern life.
And I'm guessing, and tell me if I'm wrong, in terms of that discipline that martial arts gives you, and obviously the approach to life that Stoicism can give you, I don't suppose there's much juxtaposition between the two. There seems to be almost a natural flow there to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Stoicism is very much about focusing on changing the things you can and want to, but accepting the things that you can't. It's that old serenity prayer, isn't it? Accept the things that you can't change, have the wisdom to know change the things you can, have the wisdom to know the difference, or something along those lines. And that's essentially, for me, really does sum up the whole philosophy of Stoicism. It's been I'd say that coupled with the martial arts has been a really invaluable tool for me over the years.
Yeah, so the vision I'm getting of you, is someone with a great deal of focus. To be able to turn your attention to something like that, and to be able to zone in and focus on, like you say, Not just doing an hour's worth of training, we're coming home and doing the 4 hours worth of training afterwards. You know, I can see that in yourself, that is a discipline that you've either taught or you've learned or is ingrained in you one way or another. Somewhere those skills exist within you. How would you go about sharing that with others? So Dave and I want to become black belts in jiu-jitsu or taekwondo. What's the one lesson that you could give us to help us? What one way we could focus our mind? Stop laughing, Gaz.
Well, I think the key is in what you just said. You know, if you guys really wanted to, it's about getting obsessed, and you could call it discipline and dedication. I think a more accurate way to describe it, though, would be a healthy obsession, because, well, healthy in lots of ways and unhealthy in some. Because at the height of my training, I was training 6 nights a week in taekwondo in structured classes. I was training every morning, doing kettlebells and just all kinds of crazy shit as well. I was training a lot, and I wasn't having rest days, so it wasn't healthy in that sense. But I was obsessed. That's the truth of it. I wasn't dedicated. It wasn't noble. I just really fucking loved martial arts, and I loved it so much. I wanted to be the very best that I could possibly be. And so it's that obsessive passion for something, and also that desire to be the best you can possibly be at something. I think if you take both of those and put them together, it doesn't really matter what you apply it to, you're going to do well. And over time, you'll do well because you love it. It's not a chore. And even when it is a chore, it's not a chore. And it's focused training and practice. Everyone's heard the old adage of practice makes perfect. Well, it doesn't. Practice makes permanent. It's how you practice that determines whether it's perfect or just more of the same old shit.
Yeah.
But you must have there must need to be a spark to trigger that obsession. It's like Adam just joked there, he knows full well we couldn't get anywhere near that with the state of our bodies, even if we tried. Although I say that, but then some of the people in Catherine's dojo that are 60, 70 and black belts and have chronic pain and chronic back problems. So I'm just giving up before we've even started that, which is, kind of not supporting where we're trying to go. But you must have an interest to trigger that obsession. Like you couldn't just say, right, I'm going to be whatever, I'm going to become a boxer. Right, I'm going off and do that. You can't just generate obsession by thinking I want to be obsessed. There's got to be a spark, something inside has got to relate to what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. The obsession comes from a deep interest in it. It's a deep interest, and I was deeply interested in. I could see from very early on that this could have profound effects on every aspect of my life, from my physical to my mental to my social. And the way I felt when I was doing the classes, and the way I felt after the class as well, and the way I realized I felt when I was aching the next day, it was like, oh, fucking hell, I'm aching, but actually, what does that mean? It means that I did something yesterday. Yeah. Like when your body hurts, if it's a cut, if it's a bruise, like I went through some shit yesterday, but not even that. I went through it and I came out the other side. I'm here to go again today. That's exciting, man. That's exciting. And that's it. About it.
That's every morning I wake up. I think my back, oh my God, my back's sore, but I'm here again. Yeah. Well, I got a question for you guys, because Gaz through childhood and even now is good at a lot of different sports, but you're especially good at table tennis. Yeah. Now, I remember you used to play a lot, but were you obsessed? Do you think you practiced as much as you probably could, and do you wish that you had practiced more?
It was hard because I think I don't think I was ever obsessed to the point that perhaps Jamie's talking about. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I did it. I was good at it. Had I given up all the other things that I was good at, I was sort of county badminton, county table tennis. I played a lot of cricket. I mean, I played a lot of football as a younger kid, but then I broke my ankle, so that sort of put a bit of a stop to that. I played a lot of golf, still do. But the table tennis really was was the winter sport, and I would play that sort of 3 evenings, maybe sometimes 4 evenings a week, and then go to training schools and then competitions of a weekend. So it was a sort of 5 day a week thing, 6 day a week thing, really. So, but I don't think I was ever obsessed with it. I think it's just something that I knew I was good at and I enjoyed. And it sounds awful, but I enjoyed the competition, and I enjoyed a bit like what you were saying, Jim, about testing yourself, because you go through, you start playing, and then you start in Division 4, and then quite quickly you think I'm quite good at this, and then one of the bigger teams came along and said, would you want to join us? And then you went into Division 1, and you do okay in Division 1, and then you go into the Prem, and you start playing Premier League, and then you start being selected for the county, and this, that, and the other, and you go up the levels, and you went from being quite a big fish in a small pond. I was the best player at the school, to then being not quite as big a fish in a slightly bigger pond, to all of a sudden becoming quite a small fish in a huge pond, because there were lots of other people. So you go and test yourself at county level, and you think, okay, I was ranked number 1 at under 16 in the county or whatever. So you go and play against, I was playing for Cheshire. You go and play the number 1 against Lancashire or Yorkshire or somewhere like Essex or wherever, and you think, shit, these guys are good, and as much as I wanted to test myself against them, and I enjoyed testing myself against them, I never felt that absolute burning compulsion to be the very best, because I'd come away from table tennis and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to go and have a round of golf now, or I'm going to go and have a knockabout at badminton or whatever, or I'm going to do what, and I never gave up all the other things and absolutely dedicated myself to it. I absolutely understand that somebody could do that, and I get what you say, Jamie, about it becomes a compulsion, or not quite an OCD, but a compulsion or an absolute dedication, and I absolutely understand. One story that I did, I want to say, just while we're on the table tennis, I went to it was a school, and we had a training event, and it was a 2 or 3 day event. And we were all doing, and we boarded, so it was an overnight thing, and we got to play the Chinese team. So the Chinese team came over, and they were doing a tour, and they shared the same facilities that we did. And you talk about dedication and obsession, like, wow, like that was on another level. We thought we were decent, and then you play against some of the international guys, and you're like, shit the bed, these really are good. And I suppose I never got to that level. I never got to the international recognition. I got to national level, and I was nationally ranked and stuff, and did okay, but never went beyond that. And I don't really know, Dave, whether it was I ever good enough to do it, or did I ever challenge myself enough to do it, if that makes sense.
I would say the latter.
Possibly, yeah.
You were too good at too many things.
Yeah, and I suppose I was sort of jack of all trade, and I suppose master of none. I suppose that the phrase, I was good at lots of things, but never absolutely wholly 100% wholeheartedly committed to any one of those things. So I would always just do other things as well. So maybe, and it's hard to say. And back in the day, table tennis, you wouldn't ever really make a living out of it, but you can understand these sportsmen now with the gains in terms of the money and stuff these days in sport, that if you have got that compulsion and that compassion, that dedication, and you have got some ability, absolutely try and be the best that you can, because actually the rewards are there. And I know it's not all about money, and it's about the journey that Jamie's spoken about failing and learning and developing and all of that, but it's hard to know when, I've got 2 daughters, and they're not sporty to that level, but it would be hard to know when to stop pushing them and when to encourage them, if that makes sense. It's that fine line, isn't it, between you become overly obsessive with it, or do you back off, sort of thing. So it's hard to know. Good question though, Dave. I haven't really thought about it really, but I don't know, was I ever really good enough? I possibly don't know. Did I ever really 100% dedicate myself to it? No, is the answer, and that's what I can say, is no, I probably didn't. So
you brought up something interesting there, and that's one for Jamie. Obviously, you've got a number of children. You're working your way towards, well, you've got a 5-a-side team and subs as well there. But You know, in terms of, are any of those sporty? Have any of those got an interest in martial arts?
I've taken my three boys to martial arts. The Helena's kids all did martial arts when they were younger as well. They don't do it anymore, and they're worse off for it, definitely. Are they sporty, my kids? They're very active. They love to be outside. They're home educated, so it's a bit different to when they're at school. They're not exposed to the same stuff in the same way. But I think it's really important to understand that not everybody has to be a world beater.
No.
Because, Christ, can you imagine if the world, like if everybody was like me, like really wanted to smash the ass out of everything and like beat everything and targets and like competition. I love competition. And, you know, the big thing for me with the martial arts was I could see how it carried over into it. Like it made me a better man. It made me a better person. So there was a very real benefit with everything I was doing in my sports life that I could see in my business and my personal life. But I'm very target driven. I do love competition, and I'm very much a perfectionist. So you take those aspects of my personality and you put them together, and it's no surprise really that I was able or have been able to achieve the things I have. But not everybody can be like that. Like there's not enough space on the planet for everybody to be like that, and the other kinds of personalities are just as important for different reasons, and we need that balance. So I think it would be wrong to assume that, you know, for people listening to this podcast, don't think that, oh, because I've done all this stuff, well, then you're less of a person because you haven't or because you don't want to. If you don't want to, it just means that you're built for different things, and that's absolutely cool.
I mean, Jamie's right there. We look around. We had this conversation in our meeting at the SMT senior managers a couple of weeks ago, and we look around the table, and we're all pretty different people. And we all said that if it was 6 people that were all the same, it'd be an absolute nightmare, and it just wouldn't work or wouldn't function. I mean, I'd probably take 2 of Jamie's, but I don't think I could handle 3 in the office.
That's for anybody.
It's funny enough because he said there's one day was more than enough. Sorry, Dave, I couldn't resist.
Just keep it going, mate. You know, I don't mind.
No, I know. Well, you used to. You had 40 years of it. So, in terms of that, then, with your kids, do you encourage them to get involved in martial arts because of the disciplines that it's given to you? Recognizing, obviously, that they might be built differently to you. Might be different characteristics that are in there, although the fruit doesn't always fall too far from the tree. I know my children are quite recalcitrant and uncoordinated, much like myself. So, you know, I'm guessing they got it from me, not from the wife. If she ever listens to this back, let me make that very, very clear. So, do you encourage them to have that discipline in their life, or is there a little bit of a recognition? Actually, these are sort of different animals, and that just would not work for them.
So yes, I do. I think discipline is important. I think discipline equals freedom. I think if you can be disciplined, then you can create all kinds of opportunities for yourself in life. In terms of the martial arts, I'm definitely going to get my boys and my girl to martial arts, and not because I want them to go and compete and win medals, but because I know that through doing martial arts, it will. I've seen the benefits that it has on a person's personality and their ability to, you know, the confidence and all that stuff. I want that for my kids. I want them to be confident. I want them to know. I want to know that if anybody ever causes a situation when my kids are around, especially as they're growing up, that they have a plan. That's really important to me. I don't want my kids to be like I was bullied in school. I don't want them to be bullied in school and not have a plan, not know how to deal with that emotionally and physically. So I think for all those reasons, I think martial arts should be on the curriculum. I think every school should teach it. I think every child should be made to do it for a period of time. A bit like conscription, you know, army conscription. I hated the idea when I was a kid, the idea of being told what to do and that all that authority and all that structure. I really didn't like the sound of that at all. But actually, looking back now, I think it would be so good for so many people.
Yeah, I think there's an argument in a lot of cases. So just taking you back to your school days there, I just want to ask you a question. I don't want to dwell on it too much, you know what I mean? Because, you know, the scars from the past are always present today as well. So obviously you said you had an uncomfortable time at school there in terms of bullying. Did that give you a little bit about who you are today, do you think? Do you think that gave you that determination to show the world who you are and what you can do?
Quite possibly. I think because we moved around a lot until year 5, I never really had a set group of friends like everybody else had. So every time we would move, we would go to a new school, and all the cliques would already be set. You know, everyone would already have their social groups, and so then we're outsiders trying to break into that. And so spent a lot of time on my own. So I learned how to be in my own company. I learned that I didn't need to be around other people. I didn't need to have other people, but of course it's nice, but you know, I can survive if I have to on my own. And so I think that built some resilience. With the bullying as well, you know, you having to deal with that, it definitely toughened me up. But I think I wasn't prepared for it in the way that I could have been prepared for it. And that's where I think the martial arts comes in, you know, especially if you can get into something like that from a young age, or even just have that kind of an influence at home. And I never had that really. My parents weren't sporty, they weren't physical, you know, they were always, oh, you know, you mustn't hit, you mustn't do this. And that's the other confusing thing for, you know, messaging for kids. And I say it myself to my kids, is, oh, you mustn't hit, you know, you mustn't, because you know what kids are like, they hit each other, they fight, and they do all this stuff. But actually, sometimes you should hit, sometimes you should kick, sometimes you should, you know, there is a place for violence, but it has to be, you know, it's the end degree. It's when there's no other option. But I would want, I want my boys to be monsters who are under control. I think that's my ideal, because if they can harness that raw aggression that's inside of them and control it rather than it control them. If it controls them, that, you know, like that's prison, drugs, crime, all kinds of bad things. But if they can control that, man, that's powerful. So that's where I want them to be. And I think it's important that, as I did when I was growing up, I went through those difficult situations. I think it's important kids go through those difficult situations. And I don't want to wrap my kids in cotton wool. I think that's a big mistake. But what I will do is I will be there on the sidelines. I'll be in their corner. I'll be shouting out instructions. I'll have their back, and I'll go in and I'll clean them up at halftime or in the rest break. I'll put some Vaseline on their cuts. I'll give them a bit of a pep talk. I'll pull them out of the ring if I need to, if they need some recovery time. But they're stepping into the ring.
I remember when my daughter first went to school. I'm not. Anyone knows me. I'm not a physically violent person. It's not something that's ever intrigued me. But I said to my daughter, when you go to school, you know what I mean. It's not okay to hit people. But if someone hits you first, then under those circumstances, guess what? It is okay to hit back. So anyway, we got the slip home from school. It was like, so I was talking to her about it, and I said, "Go and talk with her." She says, "Well, Daddy, you said it was okay to hit people if they hit you first." I was like, "Go on." So who hit you? Oh, this boy, he hit me. And did he do it on purpose? I don't know, but you said it was okay to hit him back. Not really. Probably should have been a bit more thorough in terms of my teachings. Yeah, bless her. That's Tilly for you. She's a character. But no, in terms of yourself, Jamie, I have to say, there's something just in the way that you talk, that there is a determination, there's a thoroughness, and you can hear the discipline in everything you say. When we ask you a question, it's thought through. There's nothing that's flippant about your answers or in any way at all. It's planned, and I think that's very, very clear. And if there's one lesson that I guess I would take away from this, is that plan. We do, yeah, I certainly don't have the physical capability to back up the kind of stuff that you could physically do. But in terms of planning, I think that's a valuable lesson in life. Don't you think so, guys?
Oh yeah, look, I think planning and having an idea and having a goal and having a reasonable idea of how you're going to get to that goal is important in sport, personal life, business, job, whatever it may be. And there's that old, fail to fail to plan or whatever, and then prepare to fail and all that. And I think there's different ways of planning, and there's different. But if you have an idea about how you want that situation or that business or that sporting environment, if you have an idea as to how you want that to end, and how you want it to end according to the way that you want it to end, then you backtrack from that and think, okay, what are the steps that I need to put in place in order for me to then to get to that, so that that's the outcome that I desire, if that makes sense. So yeah, no, absolutely. It's something that everybody can be in control of, and that goes back to what Jamie was saying: control the controllables. Control the things that you have in your power, in your capacity to control, and actually don't spend unnecessary time considering and thinking about the things that you can't control, because they're going to happen anyway. So the things that are within your remit, you control them, and you put a plan in place, and you do those things. And actually, if you can do that on a consistent basis, and you make consistently good decisions and consistently good plans, then good things are going to happen to you, and you're going to ultimately achieve the goals and the plans that you've set out. So yeah, and I 100% agree with what he said, and planning is a vitally important skill.
You guys watch UFC?
Yeah, I watch UFC a lot. Yeah.
You know John Bones Jones?
Yeah.
Did you see his comeback fight on the weekend?
I did see his comeback fight. Yeah.
He is a really interesting guy, and I think out of all the fighters I've seen, he fascinates me more than any other. And the reason is, I heard an interview with him. It was while all the shit was kicking off with the car crash he had and the drugs and
yeah.
And he was talking about the way he prepares for fights. And obviously the physical training is a huge part of how he prepares in the camps. But it was what he said about his mindset that struck me as what I think is the most important thing about why he is so good. And he said, every fight he has, he's already been in and lost and won 1,000 times before he steps in the ring. Because one of the things he does as well, alongside the physical training, is running through all of the different things that might happen. Well, so they come into the ring, they start, and the guy throws a flying knee. Well, okay, what do I do? Then he throws a punch with his right hand. Okay, what do I do? He jumps on top of me, takes me down. What do I do? He goes to try and take me down. What do I do? Every single different position, every single different move, every different eventuality, he's running them through in his mind in these thought experiments. So you said there, not thinking about the things that you can't control. I would say it's more important to not worry about things you can't control, but you absolutely have to think about them, because there's so many things in this world you can't control, but lots of them do have the ability to impact your life. And so you got to be aware of those things, because there might be things around that you can control that can help mitigate that situation in some way. And so I think, yes, have a plan, but no plan survives contact with the enemy. So I think it's more important to take the time to think, how's this going to go down? And I do this all the time, whether it's a fight, whether it's my gym session, whether it's going into a business meeting, whether it's a sales call. I will sit and I will go through. I say, right, I'm gonna do this cold call now, and they're gonna tell me to fuck off. What do I do? I'm gonna do the cold call and I'm gonna stumble on my opening line. What do I do? I do a cold call, they're gonna say this. What do I do? And so I'm still nervous, but by the time I get into the call, whatever comes at me, I've already kind of prepared for it. I've already run through and practiced in my mind my response to that particular situation. And I think that's really important, is taking the time to think. And I don't think enough people do that enough.
Mm.
Yeah.
No,
I see that with Jamie in work all the time. We had a couple of big pieces of work recently, and when I went over to say, right, we need to get started, he said, "Yeah, I've got it open. I'm just creating a battle plan," and that was his first thing. Not, I'd just open it and crack on. But Jamie quite rightly takes a bit of a more holistic view and assesses what he's got to do in the entirety and has a plan for doing it. And then it shows. It absolutely shows that approach as a winning approach.
No pressure then, Dave. No pressure. What have you learned from working with Jamie then? Do you do anything different that you've picked up from him? Well, clearly it works for him. Have you ever adapted any of those things that work for you?
Oh my God.
Look a bit smarter now, David.
Oh yeah, I was told I had to wear a shirt. Jamie turned up with bloody day one, bloody 3-piece suit. Christ's sake. So I had no choice then, so I had to put a shirt on. No, yeah, I think so. I think, yes, but I think there's a lot of different things that rub off, and it's not just Jamie, it's the team we've got there. But Jamie is a different character, a different, he's quite a standout character in the way he approaches things, and that rubs off on everybody. It's not just me. We all do learn things, and things like battle plans and stuff like that. Now, I mean, I'm not great at doing things when other people need it. I tend to do things quite late, and that's one thing I'm trying to get better at. And Jamie is suffers the brunt of that. So I don't know whether that's Jamie teaching me how to do it, or me just realizing I ought to be less like that.
What you've just said there basically is, I realise all the things that I could do better, and I've still not done anything about them.
Well, I'd like to say that's not the case, but I do frequently say in our meetings, I realise that I'm asking you guys to do stuff and I'm the worst one at it. Yeah. I mean, to answer your question, yes. Without going away and thinking about it, I probably couldn't put specifics, but I just know yes, because what I'm doing now in my day to day is not something I was doing 3 or 4 months ago, and Jamie has 100% been incredibly supportive, and because you can have frank, open conversations, all of that sort of stuff, it just helps. So the answer is yes.
There you go. We got there in the end, Jamie. We got there in the end with him, bless him. So I'm just going to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, because we have to do that. So if you want to get yourself some olives, your nuts, or some pretzels, or some chocolate covered pretzels, head over to ollies-ollies.com, and if you head there, you'll see that they've just been recently rebranding their products, and they do look pretty damn good. And if you want to have 20% off as a discount when you are on that website, use the promo code TALLBOYRADIO, all capitals, all one word, if you are based in the UK, and you will get 20% off that order, like I said. And with every order that's placed on their website, they donate a school meal to a child in need with the help of One Feeds Two. So before we go around and find out what the guys have been drinking tonight, who wants to give us their Springer's final thoughts?
I think be good to yourself. I think think about yourself, think about your impact on others, think about what their impact potentially could be on you, and it's actually good to fail at things every now and then, because actually if you don't fail at things, you don't learn from them. And to quote this sort of the light bulb moment, was it 999 times or whatever it was that he attempted to create the light bulb, and on the 1000th time he actually found success. So it's actually okay. And actually if you fail, and I use this in school quite a lot, it's your first attempt in learning. And if you look at the acronym of FAIL, it's FIAL, which is your first attempt in learning. So actually the fail first time, if you keep making the same mistake over and over again, you're not learning. But if you fail first time and learn from it, then that's just your first attempt in learning, and therefore keep moving on.
Indeed. That's rather sums up our attempts at A-levels as well, doesn't it? Apart from Dave, who did rather better than us, bless him. Dave?
I did do better than you. Yeah,
it's not hard, to be fair. Not hard.
It's not hard, isn't it?
We set the bar pretty low for you, dude.
And I basically just got over the bar. Well, that's not the point. It was over the bar, wasn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Luke, the thing is, you've just got to. If there's something you want to do, you've just got to go for it. Because if you don't, then you know what's the point? That's the bottom line. I think what Jamie's shown in a few things, whether it's facing some very challenging things in terms of being the fear of getting up and playing in a gig, or the obsession with winning all the medals at Taekwondo. You know, nothing comes easy, and as Gaz said, and as Jamie said, it's the failings along the way that make that work in the end.
Yeah, I'll tell you the one lesson I've learned tonight. Listen to yourself. And David only really given us a background, a little bit about what you do and the stuff that you've achieved. But the lesson I would take from this is, even if you've no interest in martial arts, even if you've no interest in getting up on stage and having a sing, even if you get no interest in starting a podcast about Marcus Aurelius, listen to what it is that your heart's telling you that you want to do. What's the thing that you're most afraid of failing at? Because I'm guaranteed it's the one thing you probably want to succeed at. And why not just try? Because if you don't try, you're never going to know. And if you do fail the first time, then have a go the second and the third and see what comes of it. Just look at Everton. So I couldn't resist. He gave me stick when he beat us 1-0, 4-0 the other day. Lovely stuff. So, Jamie, thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining us. Have you got any final thoughts for us?
It's been a real pleasure, guys. Thanks very much for inviting me on tonight. And I love your takeaways. I think that's absolutely spot on. You can be, I don't think you can be anything you want to be. But I think it's important to get to know yourself. And I think the better you know yourself, the better your life will be.
Yeah, that's interesting.
How do we get to know other people, right? We sat here chatting today. You get to know people at work, you get to know friends. How do you get to know people? Like, you talk, you interact, you listen to them when they speak. Well, stands to reason then that it's a pretty similar approach if you want to get to know yourself, and that involves spending time with yourself, just you on your own. I think that's really important. Listening to your thoughts, trying to work out what your feelings mean. Unless you make that time to spend time with you, to get to know you, how can you possibly hope to have that relationship with yourself that you have with some of the people you love the most in your life?
Yeah. I think you should look at getting that podcast back out there, dude, because I do think a lot of people want to listen to your learnings rather than three drunken idiots babbling on each week about the stuff that we tend to talk about from time to time. Have you got any plans to restart that?
Oh, do you know what? I'd love to, and I wish I didn't have to stop it in the first place. And same with martial arts as well. I'd love to train martial arts. I'd love to get back on stage and play in the band again. But the reality is, gents, time, and priorities matter. Priorities are important. And one of the biggest things for me growing up was my dad he was in business and he was busy. He wasn't really around at all. And my memories of my dad growing up, he recorded an album with us, and we got access to all that great kit and stuff. But he was sat in front of his chair at 8:00 at night, conked out, had a few beers. He was knackered. He didn't spend the time with us, and never built a relationship with us. And I still don't have a close relationship with my dad today. I've worked with him in the business for many years and everything else, but I don't have the kind of father-son relationship with my dad that I see a lot of other people have. And for those people that have that, that's really special. And so one of my biggest focuses is I'm not going to do that to my boys or any of my kids. And so if that means sacrificing Taekwondo training, sacrificing playing in the band, priorities. I've got to work, obviously. That's a really important part of life for lots of reasons, not just about earning money, but also my main priority for me is my kids, and I want my boys to grow up, and I want to be able to sit in a pub with my boys when they're 25 years old and be able to chat with them like I'm sat chatting with you guys here today. If I can get to that point, we're having a joke and a laugh over a beer, and they're not perfect, but they're good people, then that's job done for me.
Yeah, I think that's something to aspire to, dude. I know. I can totally get on board with that sentiment, and I do think the same about my kids. There are times when they annoy the piss out of me. There are probably times I annoy the piss out of them. I think that's a little bit about life and understanding each other, like you say, and understanding what pushes each other's buttons. But I made a promise to myself that when I had kids, I was always going to be there for them, no matter what. And I look forward to that first game of football. I take, my little lad's 3. You're getting to take to the football, regardless whether he wants to or not. We're going to go watch the Arsenal at some point. And and just having a pint with him, doing those sort of first things, I think is absolutely important. And I think with all the stuff that you're talking about achieving, probably no bigger achievement than that in life, I don't think.
100%.
Indeed. So before we go then, let's find out a little bit about what the guys have been drinking tonight, as we always do. We missed it last week, actually, unfortunately. We got carried away talking with the chap about the vodka and the gin that he was producing, and I was drinking that, and I forgot to ask the guys what they're drinking last week. Guess what? Head over to tallboyradio.com and check out the website. You'll see it's all on there on the blog for that episode. So, Gaz, say goodbye and tell us about whatever beer you've been drinking.
Yeah, look, Jamie, it's been an absolute pleasure to sort of catch up, to meet you, and to listen to just your sort of philosophies on a number of things. Been a fantastic podcast, really engaging person to listen to. So thank you very much for coming on our podcast. This week, I'm drinking good old-fashioned Rosie Lee cup of tea out of a Mr. Evertonian mug there, because I'm actually on a dry month, as they say, so I'm going to go for the whole of March without having a beer. So, yeah, that's me. Jesus. Don't look so surprised, boys. Jesus.
Well, okay, yeah. I'm just surprised at the fact you're saying it. Never mind getting through the month, mate. But good luck to you on that one.
Pretty much 7 days in. Is that it? Is it? Yeah. So we're all good so far.
Nice. I'm still on the alcohol-free stuff. It's that stuff which I'm beginning to like, and Left Zero, which is the same as last week. So that's nice and simple. And I'm doing this 30-mile walk on Saturday, which after that I may or may not decide to drink. I'm doing it with mine yet. But yeah, Jamie, it's great to have you on. It's a pleasure as always, whether at work or on the podcast. And don't forget, we've got a 3 o'clock deadline tomorrow.
I won't sleep tonight because of it, David. Don't you worry.
Well, I'll tell you about the beer I've been drinking. It's a sort of beer that will actually send Gaz on a month-long retreat away from it. It's a beer. It's called Guano. If you see that, it's Guilo, and it is a rainbow sherbet sour. Does that appeal to you, Gazza?
Not in the slightest, fella. You know my hatred for sours, so yeah, that doesn't appeal to me whatsoever.
Absolute gem. Absolute gem. One of the few things in life I do get excited and passionate about drinking. Gee whiz, God help us all. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us, Jamie. It has actually been an absolute pleasure. Put my teeth back in. And I've really enjoyed hearing about how, just not so much the things that you're passionate in. So I've enjoyed hearing about those. We're hearing about the design and your drive behind it. For me, has been far more interesting. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to talk to us. And we look forward to hopefully catching up with you again at some point in the near future. So thank you and good night.
Thanks a lot, guys.